So, welcome everyone to Meet the Sponsors podcast. My guest today is Julian Gill, CEO of Eibach Springs. Julian and I have gone back, known him quite a while. We've gone back to razor rides out in the desert, flying on Blackhawks to Fort Irwin U.S. Army National Training Center, going on presentations at PRI and hanging out at King of the Hammers. Julian, how are you?
I'm very well, and thank you very much for inviting me on. Very appreciative.
No, I appreciate it. You and I go way back, but I wanted to see how far back do you go with Eibach? How long have you been with Eibach Springs?
Quick, short history. I'm trying to think. I started in the industry in '84, and I was working for a company that was in the importer for Bilstein and BBS. And I was literally I started as the truck driver. I'd come out of the military, bummed around for a couple of years, hadn't really got a clue what to do. And a buddy of mine worked there, and he said, look, we were looking for somebody they'd just taken on a company called John Brown Wheels, who in England was like our biggest car retailer, not cars, but accessories. And it's still, the scene is still building up. It's only been going since the mid-70s. And they bought this company, and he said, we need someone to deliver stuff. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I've got nothing else to do in the evenings. And I started doing that and working in the warehouse, and then ended up working sort of in the office and doing relief work in the shops. And then in '88, my boss said, oh, we've been approached by this spring company. And we're all going like, what do we want to do with springs? I mean, we've got shock absorbers. Who cares about springs? They're nothing, are they? Yeah. And he said, I want you to come over with me. He said, I want you, this is going to be your first product. He said, you're going to take it from inception to launch.
Wow.
Okay, all right. I've not got a clue what I'm doing. Go over to Germany, meet Wilfried Eibach in Eibach, as you know Wilfried. That's how it was done. There's myself and my boss, Wilfried, and one of his guys. And to cut a very short, there was a lot of beer drunk, which I drank. And myself and the other young guy didn't drink any. And literally the next morning we meet at the factory, have a factory tour, and Wilfried and my boss come in. They go, so what did we agree last night?
You're like, well,
yeah, well, there you go. We ended up literally being in the import. I mean, and that was the beginning of it. And within 3 or 4 years, for various reasons, the company I work for, the importer, had sort of broken down and gone up. Their partners had gone off different ways. And Wilfried set his own company up and took a few of us with us. He had some other people. And I worked up through from there. So really that was about 1991 that I officially joined Eibach, though I'd been selling product for 4 years before then. And we built it from there. And then I ended up working my way up the UK office. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got no formal education, none. I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of school. Me and school didn't get on at all. Turned out I was quite severely dyslexic, had no interest in learning. So I've been blessed in that way that I found a career and a company that embraced that and allowed it to go on.
You sound like a modern youth today.
Yeah. I mean, Wilfried even now would say to you, you don't need a degree to be successful. Right. You need to understand life. Anyway, so we're digressing a little bit. I went through the Eibach company in the UK, bit of sales and marketing, ended up running the UK branch. And then Wilfried invited me over to Germany, and I worked for the holding company for a few years, going around the globe to visiting all the companies, because we've got manufacturing plants, 2 in Germany now, 1 in Shanghai. We've got offices in Australia, South Africa, and the UK, obviously.
And how many people were there when you first started? Because now you're huge with the different factories. And
we're probably about 140 when I first started.
Wow. Okay, so that's still pretty sizable then.
Yeah, but when Wilfried took it over, there were 9.
Wow.
Again, he had to leave school at 16 because his father was ill. He joined the family company, and I think he was about 21 when he took over the company when his father passed, maybe 22. And we're now 750.
Wow.
So he's built it from that, and when you look around, there's myself, there's 3 or 4 directors in Germany. We've all been with him since then, since the late 80s. And we've got staff here in the US that have done 30 years, and we've got staff in Germany that have done since boy, and they're retiring at 65. So you've got over 40 odd years with some of them. And you and I talked a little bit a few minutes ago about you were going to jokingly said, "Oh, what's the mission statement?" There is one, but it's all like a lot of corporate speak as far as I'm concerned. I think the true meaning for me for the mission is that Wilfred and the Eibach family treat everybody as family.
Yes.
He says this company is not going to be sold because it's not selling the company, it's selling the family. And that's the way he's always viewed it. And that is instilled in everybody. And you said you've spoken today, our sales manager, our marketing managers. I think that goes through the company. I think a lot of people enjoy working together.
Mm-hmm,
it's a great industry. So we're very lucky.
I've seen that. So when I visited Wilfred, I guess a couple of years ago with my son, he drove us around Finnentrop, the little town where he's from. Yeah. And he showed me the original Eibach building, which is, I shouldn't say a building. It's a stone shack essentially. Yeah. And did you guys ever buy that? He said he was not going to. And I said, "Oh, you have to buy this. You have to keep it as a legacy in the family." But he said he on it.
I don't think he did. No, he didn't. No. We still got the first big plant in Runkhausen. He still owns that. But no, I don't think he was. And you can look in the past a lot, but sometimes it's, you've got to keep looking forward.
That's true. And because when you said that he had 9 employees, it must have been the building that he started in, because that building was not have held more than 9 people. That was a small location.
And three of them were working outside.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And the town hasn't changed much in all these years, I'll tell you.
No, it hasn't. I mean, I've been going backwards and forwards 30 odd years, and it's the same bars. Wow. We still go to the same hotels and bars, and they're not hotels, they're guest houses. So yeah.
Did Eibach start as a motorsports or racing brand? Or did
absolutely not at all. 1951 was when Wilfred's father started the company, and it was industrial. It's post-war Germany. It's rebuilding the economy, and you've been to the area. It's very industrialized, mountainized area. Lots of little villages, and it came from that. Wilfred got involved. Racing, I mean, I forget the actual stories. It was one of the big racing teams came to and said, "We need a special spring, or we need a double stack spring, a double dual rate." And he developed this spring and suddenly realized there's a market. I mean, and this is 84, 85. So just before that, I started the company. And he allowed him, I mean, literally there were 10 part numbers. There were 10 motorsport part numbers. And that grew, and that sort of took off. And he said, "Oh, we'll make a load more." I mean, now in our motorsport range, we've got 1,600 individual part numbers.
Wow. Just in motorsports alone.
Yeah, just for motorsports. But that spread into lowering kits. So we're making spring kits for cars. And I think when I started, it was probably about 30 kits. That was all there was. But literally they were turning a new one out every week, and it was because every car was a target. So it was great.
Yeah. And Wilfred told me when I was there that not only does Eibach make springs for cars and, I think the railroads, but also a orchestra symphony. What is that?
Yeah, there you have got some springs under the floor so that it keeps everything harmonic.
Wow, that's fantastic. Giant spring, the orchestra hanged or something from the springs. I thought he was saying, but it was on the floor. That's crazy.
It is, yeah. But that comes from our making springs and for earthquakes. We put big springs in buildings for earthquakes and stuff like that.
I didn't even know that.
The industrial side probably employs the least amount of people, but it's our roots, and it still has a tremendous amount of business.
That's
all
cool.
The trucks that go in and out of the mines in Australia, they've all got our springs on. The railways have all got our springs on the carriages and on the valves, the engines, ship valve engines, all that sort of stuff. And that's great because you're learning or you're using material in those sorts of very testing environments, and we can bring that into what we do here.
That's a transfer of technology that we always hear about from aftermarket to OEM.
Yeah, and if you go and sit in our offices in Germany, the guys who are selling to the mines or to the ships and everything sit next door to the guys who are selling to the automotive world. So there is, you're talking to each other all day long and transferring that knowledge, as you say.
So in that case, it's because there's wide applications for the product. Where do you focus your marketing? I'm obviously in motorsports and sponsorships. Are there different marketing departments? Some that focus on racing and motorsports, and others on consumer applications, or?
No, we have a marketing department in each company.
Oh, okay.
So each company, though we are part of the Eibach group, Wilfred's philosophy, or the Eibach philosophy, is you are your own company. And he'll say to people who run those companies or head those companies up, you run this as it's your own. You've got to make a profit. You've got to do all of this sort of stuff. And we have a corporate identity, but we are also very aware that each market is different. The way we market here in the US is not how we market in China.
Okay.
If there's the same philosophy of using the same platforms, and that's, you and I touched on before we started this about talking about the pandemic, that has driven that a lot. The rise of social media, and globally the rise of social media has allowed us all the same vehicles to get our message to our customers, but the message sometimes is very different, and the markets are very different. You'd be quite right talking about motorsport. You and I have hung out at King of the Hammers and Mint 400 and stuff like that. There's nothing like that in Europe.
Yeah, makes sense. Nürburgring, I guess, but that's just a giant track. But
not
really just motorsport.
Yeah, there's no. Germany. The thought of going through a forest flat out, you get arrested by the Green Party. Want to say that?
No, it's so true.
yeah, but it's you would. There's absolutely no way that you're going to be allowed to do that. So though you're using templates for adverts or that sort of thing, but your messages can be very different and the imagery can be very different. And we're all so very slightly different. The UK to even Germany is a little bit different. It's more, it likes the Americanized idea, but they've got very European vehicles. Australia is, over the last few years, since it stopped making vehicles in its own country, it's importing a lot more of our trucks. So that's a big growth area for product we're using here. And we are seeing synergy in how we advertise and how our guys in Australia's upmarket.
Interesting. And that's for trucks then?
Yeah, they get
trucks, I'm assuming, because are there races in Australia in trucks, or is those
trucks? You think you got, what is it, 29 million people in a country as big as here,
living all on the ocean, 90%.
They're all based in three little places, really. So they've got miles and miles and miles. Ironically, I've just been talking to the guy in Australia last week, and they've got a customer who's driven an F-150 Raptor with our springs on, what they consider to be the toughest trail in the world. Now, don't ask me what it is, because it is, but when I started to read this guy, he's done 30,000 miles and it's battered all this and battered all that, and everything made it.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But when you talk about our industrial people, they have a very different message to give across. It's all about coatings and longevity and
probably customer service, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you put a ship valve engine spring, and it's got to go out into the middle of the ocean. It's not going to come back for 3 years. You can't. It's not something you carry as a spare.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Probably a difficulty installing them as well when you're out in the ocean like that, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I'm sure it's had to happen, but yeah. So going back to the part where we started from, we all have our own individual marketing departments. Ourselves in Germany have the biggest, and then China has a couple of people. UK has one person. Australia has one. And South Africa has one as well. So we all look after our own markets, but we do, especially here, Germany and China, which is our three manufacturing areas of the world. They have monthly conference calls with each other, and kick around what's working, what's not working, what trends are we seeing, what are they not seeing.
Let's go there. Let's go there for a second, because here in the US, obviously, we're seeing, especially in California, we're seeing the trend towards EV. What do you anticipate in the future as where California is sort of, because you're based out of Corona, California, you're a California company, you're a German company residing in California, listening to California laws, trying to keep up with California, environmental changes. Gee, we're rolling our eyes here at what all's going on in the state, but how do you plan for the future? You're running Eibach Springs, and springs are going to change. The needs of springs are going to change with EVs.
Well, are they? And I'm not, not to answer my own question. Tell me. That's something, you look at it and you think, okay, we're going to shift from gas to EV, and the world and our leaders hope that by 2035, that was it 65% of vehicles are electric, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's inevitable we're going to have to make some changes. But whether you're propelled by electricity or by gas or diesel, you're still going to need suspension.
Mm-hmm. Just to wait, I guess.
Yeah. And that is something that we have seen, and we've invested in. You and I talked earlier when you last came to see us about how many new machines we've invested. We've just put in a machine end of last year, and it's been running since the beginning of this year, which is made by a company called Wafius in Germany, and it's their FUL 226, and that means it can cold wind material up to 22.6 millimeters.
Cold wine. That's interesting. Cold wine. Is it really slow, I guess, is how it does it?
It is slow, but it's a darn sight quicker than hot forming. I mean, because hot forming, you've got to cool it, you've got to put it in furnaces, take it out. And we could probably do 100 a day. Here we can do 100 an hour.
Oh, wow.
So, and we've had to sort of invest in that. We invested one a couple of years ago that went up to 19 millimeter. And now we're doing this because of the truck market and because of the EV market. And because you're quite right, the weight, that's the change for us. The springs have got thicker in layman's terms. Yeah. But the actual application and the requirement is just, I mean, Tesla 3 is in our top 5 and has been for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Those guys are still modifying, changing their vehicles.
Are most of the springs that you're making now OEM, or are they aftermarket then?
No,
or modifying?
In the US, it's all aftermarket.
Okay.
We don't do any OEM at all. In Germany, the second plant, which has been operational for about 8 years, that is all OE. And that's BMW, Audi, Bentley, McLaren, Lotus, Ferrari, and that's spring and bars. We do a lot of sway bars for the OE market,
right? And for the UTV market. Thank you again.
There you go.
We went on a razor ride, and the only problem we had was a flat tire. That's because Alvin was driving.
Not bad, was it? Yeah, not bad at all. And then I had to fix that.
Yeah, I was going to say that wasn't too bad. That worked out well. So then let's swing it back to sponsorships. Sure. Knowing now that springs are not as affected as, let's say, a carburetor company or an exhaust company, obviously, with the changes, is this going to affect the way that you approach motorsports or sponsorships?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're always all of us are always going to need to get from A to B,
right?
So, whether it's a horse-drawn carriage or a car or a truck, we're going to need it. So I'm sure trends will change for lowering, hiring, whatever you want to do. But we've also, it's human nature to want to be the fastest. And we always want to compete.
Boys like to drive fast.
Yeah. Well, people like to drive fast. There, don't they? There's many ladies now racing.
That's true.
So my honest answer is I don't think so. I mean, we have seen over the last 5 years substantial growth in our motorsport market. Again, because we've got new machinery, so we can make bigger springs and everything. And off-road racing has become incredibly popular, especially on the West Coast.
Is that where you see the growth potential is off-road?
I think it became a new market for us 5 years ago,
Okay.
it went from a small market to a very substantial piece of our business. And that ties in because when you then start looking at they're going to go and race their UTV. Well, they've got to get it to a race track, so they've got to get a truck, which then they want upgraded suspension for to get the truck and the trailer there and all that sort of thing. So it all ties together. But not only that, but you're still seeing, IMSA's got good fields. I mean, there's hardly any racing, dirt late model and all that lot. I'm just going to shut my window. I apologize. This time of night, helicopters go over. But the
Dirt late model.
all motorsport we have seen, all fields we've seen an increase over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it seems that way. It's interesting because when COVID hit, everything came to a screeching halt. But when it reemerged, man, it was like it's on fire. It came back strong, very strong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of almost like for us, COVID hit, you all get shut down. A few companies can keep going, etc., etc. People started their hobbies, messing around in the desert and woods on the motocross bikes and stuff like that. So we were feeding that market, and you're quite right. Then motorsport started to feed back in bit by bit. It was probably a year. It wasn't closed forever, was it? Even though they're racing behind closed doors and all that stuff. But the racers don't care. Right. They just race.
Well, that's exactly what happened and the public events were closed, but the enthusiasts went out, and the aftermarket, especially the desert racers, maybe that helped fuel off-road a little bit. I'm not sure, but man, it had a boom. You couldn't buy certain vehicles back during COVID because everybody was out there financing them, and everybody was getting out to the desert. You just said motorcycles. You just reminded me, I saw a dirt bike at your booth in PRI. You're now making motorcycles.
Well, we have been for many years. It's always been low key.
Okay.
And we had some private customers and stuff like that. But we've had a range of motocross and dirt bike springs. Going back to the early 2000s. It's only the last 3 years we thought, we need to push this. It needs to become, again, part of as our capacity has grown, again, as you said, you see more machinery in our facility. It's allowed us to expand that range and push it. And that's exactly what we're doing. We work with KTM, their race team, supply them springs, and they've allowed us to use bikes and content, etc. Yeah, and it's I'm not going to lie and say, it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's a market that we're getting it, that we have always been in, but we are pushing into further.
It always starts that way. It starts relatively small. Now, a lot of dirt bike companies also cross over into BMX bicycling or trail bikes or mountain bikes, but I would suspect it might be different with springs because there's so many different models and shapes and sizes.
Yeah, I mean,
are you in that market yet or no?
Yeah, no, we've dallied in it, but you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, what you have on a mountain bike today will not be the same next year. I mean, everything changes. And there's a lot of air in mountain bikes, a lot of air suspension.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
we in this family here, we do mountain biking. You go into my garage. There's 4 bikes there. There's not a spring. I'm ashamed to admit spring inside. They're all air, but it's the race bikes, and it's all keeping the weight down, and that's the way it is.
You have very nice bicycles.
Our UK company works with a downhill European-based company, and they design springs for them. But again, every year it's small quantities, but every year there's an extra inch travel, less of an inch travel, slightly different OD.
Yeah, it might not be worth yet the effort to try to manufacture all those SKUs. Stick with dirt bikes first. I like dirt bikes too, so it's a good market for me. And everybody who has a dirt bike has a pickup truck. So I saw those Raptor springs when I was at your factory. They're massive. They're giant springs.
And that's again there you go back to what I said. It's building the new machinery to allow us to manufacture with bigger material.
Yeah. And are you finding that your effort to market through motorsports is reaching consumers who are purchasing and upgrading their aftermarket vehicles, or are you reaching through motorsports mostly racers who are buying parts for their cars to race?
I think both.
Okay.
I mean, motorsport is always good content. I mean, it is. It doesn't matter what you're doing. There's no doubt that watching a car go quickly is, oh, I can do that in my road car or whatever. But it's exciting. You know, you can see the classic adverts that Porsche used to do in the 80s or whatever, where they're gently driving down the Autobahn or whatever, the country roads. Fantastic. But I'm just going to go and put something sideways, a la Ken Block. You know, that's good. That's going to get you more eyes on it, and it's going to get shared, and it's going to get pushed around, and people are going to see it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's all getting as many eyeballs on the brand name as possible, and you'll do whatever you can, or you'll use whatever content you can. So yeah, I mean, we talk about sponsorship, you know, when we talk to somebody that we're getting involved with, and I think that's something that you and I have discussed with a lot of people at some of your summits and on some of the PRI events. It's a two-way street now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I go back my very, very early days of literally going around racetracks begging teams to use the springs.
And now it's the opposite.
Now it's the opposite. I mean, we couldn't make enough springs in a year to supply everybody who would like a spring.
Nice.
But you still got to select the right people. And, you know, it comes down to budgets. In fact, Mark and I were talking about this today about, you know, he wants to move Summit around because he thought he would need X, but now he needs Y. And where can he take the extra to make Y from his budget? And there's so many opportunities out there. You are always going to disappoint somebody.
How are those decisions made? Because you're right. There is it's a win-win, but it's also a lose-lose, it seems, because you're going to disappoint somebody and upset a relationship. But then again, you're going into a new market. So hopefully that market grows. Right now, I know that you have Coleman Motorsports in the trophy truck and an off-road at King of the Hammers. You were talking about Ken Block's, you know, sideways. That's drifting, obviously. There's a Formula Drift event next month in Long Beach. Are you marketing to Formula Drift yet? Or are you?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we do, and there are Google adverts. I mean, and I'm not going to try and pretend I'm an expert in any of this because I'm not. You know, at the end of the day, it's
not either.
I'm signing budgets off, and people are coming to me with ideas saying this is what we'd like to do, and they're justifying it and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, anything at an event that's coming up, there's always a reason to do it. You know, whether it's King of the Hammers, whether it's Crandon, whether it's the super speedways for Daytona or Talladega. You've got to try and spread yourself around. I mean, and the mushroom of all of this is you're trying to build more turnover, more sales. The more sales you got, the more budgeting marketing you need to go to the next step. And that's always the horse and the cart, the horse and the cart, the horse and the cart. So how do you make those decisions? Luckily, I don't have to.
You got
they are, you know, you get a lot of decks given to you, get a lot of that, and we try. We're not always perfect, but we try and say to people, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's expand on it and see what we can do. But we also try to be very honest to people. If it's a no, and it's not going to fit for us this year, we'll say we'll try and knock you down, or not knock you down, or tell you that straight away, so you don't spend a lot of time coming chasing us, trying to talk to us all the time, and then lose a deal that you could have got elsewhere with a bit more effort somewhere else.
Right.
So I think the fairest thing you've got to say is, if this is not going to work, be fair and say to that person straight away. Don't, well, I'll get back to you next week. Oh, we've not had time. You know, we've all been guilty of that. And one of the things I've learned in my career is just tell people straight away, this doesn't work. Sorry.
I think racers really appreciate it. They appreciate a yes. They understand the no, but it's the maybe that would drive them crazy.
Yeah.
You know? And I usually try to tell I do some sponsorship coaching to a member group, and I tell them a maybe is a no. So a yes is a yes, a no is a no, and a maybe is a no.
Yeah.
So maybes, I've never really heard a maybe turn into a yes without a lot of persistence and work and headache, but it's often a marketing director's just, maybe they're a little introverted and they just don't know how to say no. A lot of people have a problem doing that, you know, and I appreciate those who can just be honest and say, look, it's not good timing. Approach us again next season. It might work then. And stringing you along forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you've got to do that. And we've had a few this week have come into a sort of it's almost like oh, sorry, I forgot to talk to you earlier. Is there any chance? And at this time of the year, most of us are saying, I'm ever so sorry, but it could have worked, but our budget's already allocated, and can't create stuff. And that's what one of the things Mark was sort of messing around with the last couple of days. I feel sorry for people when you say no, but you're right, you have to be very honest. But the toughest conversation is always when you've had a long-standing relationship with somebody and it's time to move on.
That is true.
And
that is true.
They are the toughest. You're saying to somebody, it's been a great 3-4 years, you've helped us do all this, but we've now plateaued.
Yep.
You're doing the same for sort of racing. We're known now there. We need to do something else. And those can be difficult. But again, I think most people, mature people, sort of go, okay, I get it. But the thing again there is be honest. Tell people, like, now, this is our last season together.
Yes.
We're not going to be together next year.
Because objectives change, budgets change. Well, so you're in many different types of racing, and each series has its own season. Some start in the spring, some end in the spring, some race all summer, some race all winter. Does that affect your budget decision or your budgeting?
No, I mean,
it's on an annual basis.
We do it on an annual basis. We sort of get. I mean, our financial year is January to the December. So we're setting. I mean, the first thing you do is set a sales target.
Okay.
This is what we think. We know how many springs we can produce in a year. Well, which sector do we do it in? Where's our turnover going to come from? Okay, to get it there, what do we need? There's a line that we know we're going to have to do. And I'll come back to a little story about that in a minute. We do that, and then it's okay, guys, we need to take it up a little bit. Or this sector was down a bit last year, but we know we've got spare capacity to make springs in there. What can we do to sell those sort of springs? And that's the best part. That's the sort of, we decided we're going to spend X. Now, how do we spend it? And there are certain things you have to do. There are certain exhibitions you have to attend. There are certain magazines you still advertise. Okay. But the big.
I was going to ask that next. I was going to say, what works in selling springs?
Yeah, that's a good one. And well, our guys are great fans of Google Ads.
Okay.
All social media has. In fact, I sat with Mark today. I said, it's interesting the way we sell nowadays, because again, the pandemic changed several things, and we sell retail as well as we sell to our dealers.
Excellent.
When you're doing an exhibition or you're doing a post or anything, I can tell you how many people looked at that post. We can see how long they looked at it for. There's all sorts of, when you send emails out, did they open it? Did they just delete it? Did they forward it within their company? All this sort of stuff. You've got all of that. But there's still no telling whether I looked at that and in 6 months' time, are they going to come and buy something? Because that's how they got the name, or they saw it. Well, where did they see it in a magazine? Did they see it on Instagram? Did they see it on X? Did they see it on LinkedIn? There's still the slight unknown. Somebody said, what was it the other day? Somebody said impressions are bullshit. It's the dollars that count.
I think most would agree with that. Yeah, true.
I've got 1,000 eyes saw this yesterday. Yeah, but how many actually bought it? But how long is that period from when they see it to when they bought it?
I wonder if you could offer some type of rebate or discount on the future purchase, or some kind of incentive for them to fill out a quick post-purchase survey. You get these warranty cards in the mail. Fill in this, so you get your warranty for the next 3 years. But then you collect data. That's why they have warranties.
Yeah, I mean, we've done all those sort of things, but there's still no telling you. I mean, I don't know. Let's take something. A pair of headphones. I've just bought some Apple. How did I even think about it? I don't know. I've seen it somewhere, and I thought, I need some. I'm going on a long haul flight soon. I need some noise cancelling ones. Oh, I remember.
Yeah, that's true. And I heard that they work.
Yeah. So
word of mouth.
I think it's nowadays it's just this constant. You just got to keep pushing the brand, and finding every avenue. So we come back to content. But the story I was going to tell you was back in the very early 80s. sorry, very early 2000s in the UK. We were having a tough time financially. The country was. And we didn't have a great marketing budget, but we had, we were advertising a lot of magazines. We did a few shows and that sort of thing, supported dealers. And it was tough. And I said, you know what? We're not going to advertise this year. Not doing anything. No marketing. Can't afford it.
Save our money. We're going to save our money. We're not going to market.
Yeah. We had a great year. Absolutely fantastic.
What happened the next 3 years? I'm wondering.
Huh? So I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm going to carry on. By March, I'm like, oh my God, the sales had dropped through the floor.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. So you could carry for a certain period. And that's where I always think about keeping the eyes constantly on it, because we didn't have any eyes on it for 12 months, but sales carried on. It got to 13 months, 14 months, 15 months, and it just died. And we had to really ramp up all our marketing. And in the end, it cost us more because we had to double up from what we did.
That's interesting. It's interesting because I remember speaking with someone at Monster Energy, and the opposite concept sort of happened. Is during COVID, there were no events. So none of the Monster athletes, and there's thousands, were able to compete live at the events, but sales went through the roof and Monster Energy stock went through the roof. And they were debating, was this because of all of the prior marketing that was done that people now remembered and knew the brand? Or is it because people are staying home and they just need to drink something, so they buy an energy drink? It's a feel-good drink. They weren't sure. But when sales reached an all-time high with none of their athletes out doing events because of COVID, then they started rethinking the physical live events. Like, wow, maybe these are not as necessary as we actually thought. And that's when they started doing more with influencers and promoters, social media promoters, and focusing on people who have an online presence.
Yeah.
They saw sort of the opposite happen. In some cases, cigarette companies, I think, did really well. A lot of foods, not fast food, but a lot of junk food companies did real well. Beverages did well during COVID because people stay home, and what do? They ate and they bought food and they drank and
watched TV and yeah.
Exactly. Or they went UTV, and they out here in California, we all went to the desert, and everybody was financing UTV side by side.
Then you couldn't move in the desert on a Sunday afternoon. Everybody was out there. Yeah.
It was pretty crazy, but it was also pretty fun. We've had some good times out there.
Yeah. So it's get back where we were. It's just you just got to keep thinking. You've got to keep reinventing the wheel. No, that's a cliche, but you just got to keep
renting the spring.
Yeah, keep coming up with new things just to keep people excited, keep doing things. King of the Hammers was one for us. We had a booth there this year, which is not done before. Well, we have, but we did it in a better way this time. We just had a few little activations there. We had some remote controlled trucks that people could, thing and everything. We ended up getting 400 new subscribers to our mailing lists.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you do have a metric then that you're able to determine the success.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mark comes back and said, look, we signed up 400 new people who are now getting our newsletters or
that's huge, or
our blasts or whatever. And, again, you look at that number and you say, how many of those are real? But we incent, because we've all done that. We've all gone and signed up for something on an exhibition and given some complete fake email address. We use our colleagues' email
just so you can win,
to win it on the time. But an event like King of the Hammers or something, we tend to give out a very decent prize, which this year was like $1,000 gift card.
Oh, nice.
So you were going to get informed by email, so you had to give your real email.
Yeah, it's the spin the dial. That's when they give the false email addresses, because you're going to spin it and you're going to get free koozie, and you're like, I'm not going to. That's not worth the email address. I'm not going to trade my email for a koozie. Yeah. But
I give out gift certificates.
I tell you what, 400 is a lot. That's a really good lead gen.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. It was a long event, but we were very pleased with that. Very pleased with how many people came by and just hung out and gave the email address and hoped to win and took away a hat or whatever it was.
Yeah, because now you can actually take that 400, send them a very generous discount on a product, maybe find out what they're driving through a follow-up, unless that was part of the original lead gen.
Yeah.
what's your car, what's your email address, what's your name. I
And
don't know.
that's kind of what we do anyway. I mean, we don't tend to
Follow up.
we tend to protect our dealers, so we don't like to give discounts out
Okay.
ourselves. But there are ways there's all sorts of ways of skinning that cat. With gift cards or incentivizing a purchase. If you buy something, send us your receipt. We'll send you a T-shirt. All this sort of
Okay, that's cool.
So
That's cool. And then, so that's what's happening today. You can generate leads today through emails. You can go to events. You can collect addresses. How have you seen motorsport marketing or sponsorship specifically change over the years? Like since the mid '80s when Eibach got started, in the '90s when you got started, how has it evolved? Because it used to be that racers would try to approach a brand offering exposure and logos. Now I know it's a lot more than that. What is it that Eibach looks for from representation?
I mean, we've touched on this already. I mean, it's content. It really is content, because yes, we want to make sure that there are plenty of eyes on it. We want a nice decal on the car, the biggest that we want the biggest, the best place, all that sort of stuff. You have to be practical when you're working with. At the end of the day, you got. I mean, Jason Coleman is one extreme where you just see the car is almost completely Eibach branded, and then you'll see another guy, or you might see Audi in DTM or BMW in DTM, and they've got a tiny little Eibach sticker on there because they're kind to us or whatever. But it's all about the exposure. But it's more, can we get stuff off you, and can we use your brand or your videos or whatever in what we're doing? Is that going to change in the next couple of years? I don't see it, but I mean, who knows? I mean, who have seen the rise of Instagram 10 years ago? I mean, none of us did. Or X. But I think the thing that's changed, and like I said this earlier on, I remember going around literally the paddock begging people to use our springs. And then people would say, yeah, I'll use them, but what do you want? Well, would you put a sticker on? Yeah, okay. And then gradually it starts to swing the other way when people are trying to save as much money of their own personal budget, and they want as much free product as they possibly can, or assistance with product. So there's that change. But it's now, and this is when people come to us at deck, you're instantly looking to, what can you give me? Are you going to touch something I've not gone into? I mean, do you go around the schools, your local schools, and show the kids your race car, or do you get them to the paddock? Do you have events in the paddock in your pit or whatever? And who can we invite? So
and how can you take that transfer of technology? How can you develop new springs using these drivers, for new applications? Let's say new models of razors, the Pro R versus the Turbo XP, the new Can-Am.
Then you find that those people will lend you those vehicles.
Exactly.
That is one side that we've never had. I mean, on all our social media and anywhere you look on our website, there's an area where you can look where we've got a list of vehicles we would like for R&D. And you'll often find a guy who's got, he goes on that list. He says, oh, I've just bought the new Can-Am. And we'll go, great, thank you very much. Can we borrow it for 2 days? We'll give you product. We'll put product on it for you. We'll set it up, the whole thing. We'll get prototypes on it. And then when we've done the product, if it's anything new and we go to production, we'll bring it back. We'll put production parts on for you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The double side of that is you'll often get people turn up with a brand new Can-Am and they've got a brand new truck that we've not seen yet. And we go, and can we borrow your truck as well? You get some people just know people, and you get this circle that seems to keep expanding of people who know people who know people. So getting vehicles is not too difficult. Sometimes there's models that they're very rare and they can't, but usually, and also, we go around our guys. A lot of our guys have got interesting stuff.
And do you consider those sponsorships with the list on your website of vehicles that you need?
No.
I guess the drivers probably do. The owners of those vehicles probably think, oh, look, I'm getting free parts.
Yeah, well, that's R&D, and that's a separate, because that's not fair on our marketing team to take their budget to do our R&D, because we're developing product that we're going to sell on, and it's going to become a part number. It's going to become a SKU, and we're going to be selling that for the next years. With race teams, you'll often get our guys, our engineers or our motorsport sales team guy will be out at a race with a team we work with. And they'll come back and say, hey, we need a couple of extra bits. So perhaps they're using a 10-inch 2.25, 500 and a 600, but we actually need a 550 as well because it's just, and then you look at it and you think, okay, we can add that in. Now that's an easy add-in for us because we already know parameters. It's just creating another rate. But that's how specific rates expand. And we keep going back to making bigger springs. That's certainly something that we found over the last during COVID, post-COVID, was people get bigger trucks, bigger UTVs and stuff. We're making bigger springs, and those ranges are just expanding and expanding and expanding. And we're making some crazy rates nowadays.
So I'm hearing there's an R&D budget, and then separately there's a marketing budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sponsorship probably falls into the marketing budget, obviously.
Yeah, and you have to keep them separate. It's only fair.
Okay, that's new. What's on the outlook for Eibach? What's on the horizon?
Well, in Europe, we've had a product line which we call ERL, which is the Eibach replacement line. ERL. And that is standard OE replacement springs. And it's been very successful over the last couple of years in Germany. And we launched it at Apex last year here. The majority of what we've got is European-based models. So there's a lot of BMW, a lot of Audi, that sort of stuff in there at the moment. We are starting to make for all the trucks, and we are starting to make for domestic vehicles as well. So that's a new advertising campaign for this year. It's, where do you push that? Because that's not what we've always been all about the aftermarket and performance. And this is, I'm at the garage, my left front spring's broken, I need a new one.
Yeah, I got in a car crash. Well, I was going to ask, is it just a replacement spring or is it an upgrade?
No, we consider it's an upgrade with the material we use, but the spring rate, the travel, all of that, we take an OE design and say, okay, we'll make that spring to do that job, but being big-headed, they will last longer.
I guess that makes sense. If someone does have a damaged vehicle from an accident, they probably don't want to replace all their springs. They just need to replace the damaged one.
It's a distressed purchase.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's like most people, you go to any repair shop or anything, you break a spring, they'll usually say to you, it's best to replace both sides. So, but you can buy those individually. So that's a good line for us. It's going to be a line that becomes more important every year. But that's a whole new way of marketing.
So would you be looking for teams that have relationships with the OEMs, like someone who's a factory Ford driver, factory Toyota driver, factory Subaru, factory?
I don't know whether it's with the OEMs. It's making people think that we are trustworthy for just a replacement part.
Okay.
I mean, is it going to be a completely new outlet for us? I mean, is it going to be the performance warehouse? Probably not. No, it's going to be more discount tire, somewhere like that. So it's a whole new way of getting that. And the big thing, first of all, is creating data, which really isn't marketing, but it's getting data out to the right people in the industry so that they know what we've got and what it all works. But you still got to get people to trust our name.
And it sounds like you got to get a lot of mechanics and service repair shops to understand that you offer that as a product now.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the truck market, because there are people who don't want to raise their truck. They want to keep it dead standard, but the nice thing about this is you can go back a long way because people have got trucks for 20 years and they're breaking springs, so you can make, and also thankfully a lot of the older trucks haven't changed that much in suspension. There's periods with things like Tacomas and stuff where you get 8 years. It's the same spring for 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, it's harder to steal a spring than it is these Tacoma wheels and tires everybody's stealing. We have this epidemic happening right now in Southern California. Tacoma wheels are being stolen off vehicles everywhere out here. it hits the news almost daily.
Yeah, crazy.
Even at local schools. Yeah, crazy how car parts are in such demand. I guess prices are going up.
Catalytic converters was the thing before, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that's true. Catalytic converters, now that's Tacoma wheels. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
there you go.
so much. There's
Yeah.
always something, man. It's always something. What's the next race you're going to? Or what's the next event you're going to? Any idea?
That's a very good question. I don't know. I know I'm going to Crandon, but that's August. I will probably fit something. I'm actually going to Argentina in May, and I know I'll be going to some races there because our importer there sells our race springs out there. So he always takes me to something, and it'll probably be a rally of some kind, which will remind me of my early days standing in the Welsh forests, freezing my off as waiting for Malcolm Wilson to come careering around the corner at
Nice
morning or whatever it was.
jonesing that you were in that car.
Yeah.
Spinning sideways. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Yeah, but I mean, we've got a couple of guys who are at races a lot. I miss it, but it's not something I get all that much time to go and do nowadays.
I think I'll be at Formula Drift next month. If you want to go, let me know. I'll meet you there.
Well, I'll definitely be
at Long Beach.
That's a good point. I'll be at the Long Beach Grand Prix, definitely there. Yeah.
So, and I don't know if the drift, I think it follows it, where it's somehow during the Grand Prix and then a day or two afterwards is Formula Drift. Or I'll have to look at my calendar, but yeah, I'll be out there with one of my sons. He's going to head off to the Marines in May after graduating from
congratulations.
SDSU. He's going to OCS. Thank you. Yeah. And so it'll be one of our last weekends together before they ship him off to Quantico for officer candidate school. It should be cool.
Fantastic. Well,
we're very excited about that. Yeah, it is pretty fun. So I'm going to try to limit these calls to about an hour, and we're at 55 minutes. So I appreciate your time, and I know it's getting late. So I think this is awesome that you've been able to take the time and join me on my very first reinstatement of this Meet the Sponsors podcast. In the field of sponsorships or motorsport sponsorships specifically, is there anything that I should have touched on or didn't think about, or anything that for people who might be listening to the call? These podcasts will initially be made available just to the members in my membership program. Any advice to them on getting sponsored, not just by Eibach, but by any company in general? What have you seen over the years with your experience that drivers are doing wrong when they're approaching sponsors, and what could help them get more sponsorships?
I think the biggest problem is when people are very demanding and very pushy and keep, I've just talked about this before, and they just keep hounding you and hounding you and hounding you. I think that is becoming less of a thing as people have got more educated, especially over the last few years, when they're learning about all of this, and there's lots of your book and there's other people's advice. And the decks have certainly got more professional as the software has got better for people. There's this danger of being overbearing, but there's also the bigger danger of underselling yourself.
Okay.
If you're going to be good at something and you're going to have a lot of eyes on you, make that the focal point. Don't say, well, I'm going to be really successful, I'm going to win every race. Say there are 20,000 people seeing this on ESPN or whatever every Saturday afternoon, because that gets your attention, not the fact that you're going to win every race, because you might be winning the race in front of 3 people. So, and Mark may have a different opinion, but that's what gets me when the decks come across to mind. Mark saying, look, we're going to do this person, or we're going to do this. That's the first thing I'm looking at is what's the audience? How big is the audience? Where, how varied is it? Or, is it just the young kids, or are you aiming at the older people or whatever? And that goes back to that. We'll just talk about that new product, this sort of thing. That's probably it's not a young person's product. It's slightly an older person's product. Okay, so we could use this person to push that into that area.
And not necessarily doesn't have to always be through racing. It could be at any time, even when they are not racing. In fact, off season is a really good time to promote companies that you're involved with.
Yes, I mean, you look at that people of SEMA or Apex or whatever, or any of the race or the exhibition PRI who walk around with our merchandising on or something like that. It's just getting eyes on the logo and the name constantly.
So I want to ask you about that SEMA real quick, but I'm also going to throw it out there to those others on the call. If anybody has a question for Julian, we just have a couple minutes. I'll open it to a couple questions, and you're welcome to turn your microphone on and ask it. But I want to ask the first one. I did not see Eibach at SEMA last year. Is that because you were in the Apex building? I didn't go over to Apex.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't do that. Okay.
you have to look at everything with very cold eyes nowadays. And say, am I getting my return on investment? And we just felt that we are reaching all of those sort of customers in a different way. Zoom calls, all that sort of stuff, and visits. And we just decided that we wouldn't do that. We would do Apex instead because we're launching this new product.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how was the effectiveness of that Apex versus SEMA? And I'm so surprised they don't try to make it one big show now. They keep it separated still, which
I think they're very different shows, very different markets. But it was very interesting to me this year to see how many people had a booth in SEMA and in Apex. So some people are testing the water both ways. I mean, both shows are incredibly relevant, and both organizations are incredibly important to our industry. But, you sort of have to turn around and say, well, okay, am I going to spend X 100,000 or whatever it is, a couple 100,000 on doing SEMA? Is that going to get me as much if I put 100 grand into Google Ads?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the reality of it nowadays.
That's interesting, especially because Google Ads have been so effective.
Yeah. But I'm still a great believer in doing exhibitions and meeting people because there's nothing better than actually talking to people to get a real reaction of what's going on. Because
that's true.
By now, you and I are having this conversation on Zoom, but if we're in a restaurant over sushi and a beer, that conversation becomes much deeper and much more forthright.
And I think the first few times you meet someone, they're much better in person. And as you get to know somebody, now you can transfer it to a digital universe and you can do Zoom calls and it's just as valid.
Yeah.
If we didn't know each other yet, it would be not as comfortable of a call as one that, we've known each other a decade. So I do notice with Apex and SEMA that Apex has more suits and ties and it's more of a upscale where SEMA is more the enthusiast and Apex is more of the business. I think at least that's how it has been traditionally in the past.
Yeah, but I don't think that. But both of those are in the right world. I mean, I also attend several military exhibitions and shows during the year, like you do.
Oh, interesting.
You look at those. I mean, there's a couple. It's like it's either military uniform or business suit, not business attire. It's you will wear a suit and a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a different way of doing. There's different appearances for everything, and
Speaking of military, I actually had dinner in Vegas a couple of weeks ago with the new garrison commander of Fort Irwin.
I saw
with Renita, who puts on these tours.
Yeah,
and there will be a tour actually at the end of April.
I know, you did email me about it, and that's the one I can't do. But
I'm going to skip out on that one as well. I've been on so many times now on those Blackhawks that I figure the odds are skewed against me. So if I do go, I'll just drive out there. It's a short enough drive for me. But it is pretty fun. It was cool meeting the new garrison commander and his family, and then Dale Eels from Las Vegas Events was out there as well. We had a pretty nice dinner, and we met the president of the AUSA, which is the Association of the United States Army, the Las Vegas chapter, as well as the Fort Irwin chapter.
Yeah, that's a very good association, and that is the show we go to every year in DC.
Oh, it is? Okay, cool.
USA, it's a really cool show, very, very focused, very business focused. Typical Washington, it's 2.5 days of intense, literally breakfast, show, lunch break, meetings all the way through. Very good. Yeah.
It's good to know that, Julian, because they've asked me to come and address their chapters on raising money for their charities through sponsorships. Like I helped the Fort Irwin branch with their annual golf tournament. That's how they put on a lot of these, behind the scenes tours, is they just raise money, charitable donations. But with 100 and something different branches, I think 130 something, or don't quote me on that, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
They'll have all of them under one umbrella at the DC convention, and they want to educate all of their charity those people who are putting the charities on and raising the funds on how better to do it, because you have military personnel who are really good at their job in the military that are now trying to sell sponsorships, and they don't know how to approach it correctly.
Yeah, no,
so a little bit of coaching there helps.
It's a good show, and I know where they get people to stand up rightly. I mean, they do the I don't know what you want to call them, the people like you would stand up and talk to people. They have the whole, you're right in the middle of the show.
Wow.
It's very cool show to go to.
That's good. That's a really good time. Maybe going again, or going this year for the first time. My dad goes a lot because he's a retired Army and Special Forces, and he loves the AUSA. He's very active in his local chapter in San Diego. But I may head out to DC with him next time. Now that I hear from you that it's something that's worthwhile, not just for the military, but also for
maybe a couple of us out there. So definitely,
that's excellent. Does anybody on the call have a question for Julian?
I do have something to say. I just don't know if Julian wants to hear it.
Well, now I want to hear
it. Julian looks like he could have had long hair at one time.
You've seen the picture?
I have seen the picture.
That's that hippie he was talking about back in the early days.
Back in the early days.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. How long is your hair now? Not as long as yours, though, right?
Oh, no. No, not at all. Pretty impressive tour that you gave us that time when I went there with Alex.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing the production of just like the Raptor springs alone, it's just unbelievable. That tour could be a YouTube video in itself, just to educate people on how the whole process goes.
Yeah, we do every now and again. You put out, I mean, again, it's attention span, isn't it, Vince? I mean, you've got to be careful with social media, because if you make it too long, people are turned off, or they just skim over. They just, oh God, is it still going on? It's got to be real snappy. But I mean, we do like to do like every now and again. We like to do a couple of minutes of talking about stuff. I mean, go back 10 years, we wouldn't show anybody. I mean, you guys would not have been allowed in production. We kept it very secret. But now it's become a real marketing tool for us, and we realised that was a great thing to do. But you're quite right to see that those big springs come off that machine, and when that cutter comes down and they fall into the basket. It's a great one. We do use it. We do use that every now and again.
How many spring companies are out there?
Do
the same thing that you do?
The same thing that we do. Probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of spring companies, and a lot of very good spring companies. I mean, I would never, ever decry somebody's reputation or their abilities, because we all do different things. But as spread as we are in the US on motorsport and aftermarket, 3, maybe 4 at the max.
Right. So as far as like you guys giving sponsorship out to, let's say, different racers, you're trying to compete against the other spring manufacturers. So like, at what time before I sold the company, I think we talked about at lunch, or when you were giving me the tour, that, we had built, 200, sand cars, pre-runners. And then we were also doing the small mod carts that, we would run in the Lucas off-road series. Right. And so pretty much we strictly ran your springs. And so, do you guys feel like you pretty much cornered the market on all these different types of series?
No, I don't think we have. I mean, we have a good share, and every now and again that share can shift a little bit to somebody else, of where we pick up that. Because I mean, the biggest problem, Vince, is, I mean, you've been in business yourself, is we can make X number of springs a year. Right. After that, you can only do so many shifts a day, so many shifts, so many hours a week, etc., etc. And there becomes a definitive number that you can make. to a cost-effective way. So sometimes, you know, a market will boom and we go, oh, we can't quite make enough product for that sector because we're already committed to doing this. So, you know, you try and be a bit fluid about it, but there's some sectors we can say, yeah, we're number one at the moment, but I couldn't guarantee you're going to be number one next week, because whenever you're number one, you've always got a target on your back, and somebody wants to better you, but that's healthy and that's good, because if you didn't have that, you would just keep churning out the same stuff and you wouldn't push the company, you wouldn't push yourself, and at the end of the day, you'd be pretty boring and you wouldn't come to work in the morning. You just do nothing.
Yeah, right.
Or you'd sell the company and just drive around like you do, doing nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Not pretty much all I know.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for joining the call, Vince. That was good. That's how's Mitchell doing overseas?
He's good. He's they just had the 12 hours of Sebring, so the online deal, and I think he wished it would have went a little bit better, but we're still trying to get him back here. You know, as we went to I went with you, Alex, to the Nitro event, see if we could get him a ride, but we're still pushing, see if we can do that.
All good things come in time.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well,
can you hear me, Alex?
There we go. I do. Yes. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi. Yes, good. And yourself?
I'm doing well.
I have a question. As you know, I'm up in Canada. So my question to Julian would be, if there was a specific sector in Canada that you would like to improve on, what would it be? And yeah, so like, what sector in Canada would be needing of improvement?
Okay, well, that's really good. We've been talking about it a little bit already, Paul, and this is our Eibach replacement line, which is the OE replacement spring. In Canada, we feel is a very, very good target for us because of certain areas of Canada has a very long, cold winters, and salt spray and everything is damaging all parts of the car. And we operate with an importer in Canada. We don't sell ourselves into Canada. We have a company up there called Marcor who import for us and distribute all our product. And they're very aware that is a good product for their market.
Who does the marketing? Do you do the marketing or do they do the marketing?
They do it all themselves.
Oh, the importer does the marketing.
Yeah, we'll help them with content. We'll help them with whatever they need. You know, okay. a lot of our importers will see our website, say, "Can we have a template for that?" And they put the guys in South Korea call themselves Eibach Korea, and they use all our logos and everything. So to go to Paul's question, yeah, I mean that's our big push with our people in Canada for 2024 and 2025.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'll work on it from that end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey, thanks for the question, Paul. Thank you. Julian, thank you for the time tonight. I appreciate it. This was awesome. This was, I can't wait to get this edited and then up onto the podcast and see how all that works. My son Cole has been very proactive in getting me to do this and pushing me for months and months and months, and I finally did it. So with your help, I do appreciate it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I think it was good. I learned a lot. There was a lot of things here that I didn't know about Eibach. Not that I have to rehash them all, but we'll go out for beers.
Well, I'll definitely see you at Long Beach. Just let me know when you're going to be down there, and then I'll make sure I get up there.
All right. Yeah, let's do that. That's perfect. I'll plan on getting together then.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, Julian. Have a great night. Good night, everybody. Thank you for the call.
Thanks for listening to us.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.